Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. This is Ozark Living, and today, part one of a two-part series where we're talking short-term and investment opportunities at Lake of the Ozarks. Let's check it out. All right, guys, my name is Scott, and if this is your first time visiting the channel, welcome, thank you, and while you're here, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell, because every Tuesday and Thursday, I'm dropping a new video telling you everything you need to know about moving to or living in Lake of the Ozarks. We're also a group of licensed lenders and agents, so as much as I love making these videos, I would love even more to help you with your lending or real estate needs. So that number popping up below, I am the guy that'll answer the phone calls, the text messages, and the emails. If there's a question, a scenario, or just something I can do, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. And until then, we wanted to talk a little bit about short-term or investment opportunities at the lake. And the more conversations we have, a lot of folks are asking those types of questions, and they're asking it from two different angles, right? The first angle they're asking it about is, hey, I purely want to buy an investment home or condo or property there in the Ozarks. Can you tell me about it? Pros and cons, and what should I know? Other people are asking, hey, we want to buy a vacation home for our family, and we want to create memories and do some things, but when we're not using it, we would like to short-term rental it to help offset the cost of it. So the more we're having these conversations is obviously why we wanted to put together this video. And so when we're thinking about doing an investment opportunity or short-term or long-term rentals, there's a few factors that obviously go into that, right? We're doing that to either offset a mortgage payment or create income. And so the ROI along with the property and other things have to be considered before making that purchase. You know, and I think one of the main things in doing, I guess, any type of purchase, whether it's an owner-occupied home or an investment opportunity, it's always going to be about location. So let's go ahead and pull up a map of the lake. And as you're looking at the lake, you can tell it looks like an ancient Chinese dragon. So we're always referring to different parts of the lake towards different parts of the dragon. And so when you're looking at the head, the neck, and the belly area of the dragon, that's probably the first place that we want to look at when it comes to investment opportunities. Now, any lakefront property in this area is going to be rentable. And I'll explain a little bit more because we also have our property that way. But any area on this lake is going to be rentable. There is a desire to come down and have a lakefront property. So when people are thinking about booking vacations or traveling or doing certain things, they're looking for a lakefront home. So it doesn't matter where the property is, it will be rentable, right? But what we know is some places might be more rentable than others. And so when you look at the map and you have that head, neck, and belly area, you're looking at Lakeside and Village of Four Seasons down into Osage and kind of up and down that Highway 54. And the reason we want to look in this area is because that's where the majority of tourism traffic comes into play. And so when we think about the peak season in the Ozarks, you're looking at Memorial Day to Labor Day. And so the majority of that peak season, the majority of tourism is going to come into that area. And so if you're thinking about purchasing, you know, an investment home or even a vacation home for your family, but you want to offset it, if you put that property in the most desirable place, then you're going to have more opportunity to get it rented. Whether you're doing long-term rentals or short-term rentals, right? You think about, hey, location is everything in real estate. And so making sure that that property is centrally located in those areas, you're going to be super close to all the retail stores, super close to all the amenities and lakeside restaurants and the hospitals and medical things. So obviously, if you are thinking about that rental property or vacation home or investment, where we put that property is going to be a big indicator of what kind of return that we're going to get out of it. And so when you're thinking about it, pull up that map, think about the east side of the lake, running down Highway 54, and if there's opportunity in that area, that's probably going to be the best ROI for you. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't rent your property if it's further down the lake. So when you're looking at the legs and the tail of the dragon, you're still going to be able to rent that property. You just might not get as much traffic, or you might not be able to rent it for as much. And so those are just things to think about and consider if you're going further down the lake. And so we have our vacation rental property there as well. But we are way down the tail. We have a Roach address, and so it's like mile marker 42.5. And so we are further down the lake and further away from those amenities. So some people might not want to be that far away from the limelight and the scene, right? Others might want to be. So it's dependent on what people are looking for when they're coming down for their vacations. But I would imagine that because my property is a little bit further away, I probably don't rent it as much and for as much, right? So if I was closer to Osage, I might get more people booking my property. And for those that do book it, I might be able to rent it at a higher per night basis. So again, no different than purchasing your own single family home or doing any other type of, home purchase. And real estate, location is key to everything. So some things to think about and consider is obviously where we're going to put this property. Another one is to consider is this going to be a purely an investment home, or are we looking at it from hey, this is a vacation home for our family and we want to short-term rental it when we're not in that property. And so all of those can kind of come down to the best terms on the loan that you're getting. Now, if you're just buying purely in cash, none of that matters. But for the majority of us, right, we're trying to leverage a mortgage on something. And so if you're doing a purely an investment home, that's probably going to have a larger down payment, probably not going to love maybe some of the interest rates on it. Or you can look at it as a second home. And if you're purchasing it from a distance, then maybe a little bit less down than the investment home and maybe a little bit better on those terms. And so however you're looking at it, when you think about leveraging the mortgage or what that mortgage payment's going to be, that's how we're going to factor in the ROI. And is this going to be a good investment opportunity? Are we going to be able to offset the mortgage? Are we going to be able to show profit, as time goes on? So obviously we know that we're purchasing it purely from an investment standpoint, then we're not going to be in that property at all. We're going to try to do things to maximize the rentability of it. So again, from that peak season, Memorial Day to Labor Day, you're probably raising your prices. You're raising it on the weekends and lowering it on the weekdays. You're maybe giving a discount for a 7 or 10 day long rental. And so there's things that you can do to incentivize the renter if they're going to rent your property during, again, certain times. And you're going to want to try to maximize, especially in the Ozarks, that peak season, right? That is the highest trafficked time in the Ozarks. And so you're going to want to try to maximize that as much as you can. And again, that's Memorial Day to Labor Day. You probably have a month on the front and back end of that. So maybe that April to October timeframe is where you're going to try to maximize it the most. Now, outside of that, when you're in the off-peak season, there's still things you can do to try to get it to rent or maximize your ROI on it. And maybe you're trying to appeal to a longer term rental. So maybe you're going to do it by a per month basis. And hey, if you rent it for the entire month, we'll give you a bigger discount. It's 50% off if you can take it for the entire month. And that'll also go back to the location. If you're able to find that property that's maybe in the heart of things, you might have people coming into town that are going to be there for a longer period of time. Maybe they're there for business, they're visiting family, they're there for some sort of medical need. So they might need a place for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or so. And so in those off-season timeframes, you're going to want to drop the price point a little bit. You're going to want to give discounts and perks if they rent it for a longer period of time. And so purely from an investment standpoint, if you're purchasing that property, we want to make sure that the location of this property is going to be able to maximize the amount of people that are going to have their eyes on it. We're going to want to make sure that if we're doing it from a mortgaging standpoint, that we get the best terms on our mortgage in order to basically have the best ROI come out of it. And then we also want to think about, hey, during that peak season, how can I maximize this property as best as possible? And, raise the price a little bit on the weekends, maybe again, give a little bit of a discount for a week or a 10-day stay. And you're going to try to want to book those rentals up back to back as much as you possibly can to take advantage of that peak season. And then when you're not in that peak season, you're going to want to make sure that you're providing some type of incentive to get a renter in there for a longer period of time, do things on a week basis, or try to get them in there for a month and try to appeal to somebody and give them 50% off if they rent it for the entire month. So there's things that you can do from a purely in an investment standpoint to try to maximize that. And if you're doing it from a place of a vacation home, then once you set up your short-term rentals, you are going to go in there and you're going to block out your vacations first. So however many trips you're looking to make to the lake, you're going to want to go in there and block those off, right? So Memorial Day and 4th of July and Labor Day, or I want to be there for the shootout, whatever it is, you're going to want to block off your times. And then when you look at the rest of your calendar, you're going to want to try to, again, pick and choose your price points, give incentives for those that book for a longer period of time. You're doing the same game, but you really, again, want to make sure that you block out your time first, right? Because the last thing you want to do is open up your calendar and people are booking into the times that you want to be there, and now you got to go cancel on them. It doesn't look good. So anyway, figure out what trips you want to make first and then open up your schedule for the rest of the people. And outside of some of the things that we've already talked about, other things to factor in and consider is going to be the type of property. And so are we looking for a single family home or are we looking for a condo? And regardless, if you're looking for either one of those, if that property has an HOA, we are going to 100% want to make sure that the covenants of that HOA allow for short-term rentals. There are some condos on the lake and there are some communities that don't allow short-term rentals. And so if you're buying it straight to do an investment, 100%. If you're a vacation home but you want to offset the mortgage with some Vrbo and Airbnb stuff, we have to make sure that that property allows for short-term rentals. We would hate to buy a property and not be able to rent it out when that time comes. So think about that as time goes on, and then there are pros and cons to doing a single-family home versus a condo. And sometimes with condos, you're able to have a little bit more hands-off, a little bit less maintenance. The HOA will carry other types of amenities like pools or basketball courts or tennis courts or other clubhouse amenities, which can be very attractive. If I want to come down and rent, you're almost in a hotel kind of rental scenario, yet you have the luxury of it being your own place with a kitchen and some other things. And so you're a host to that, right? You're in the hospitality business. So your owner standpoint, it's a little bit easier. It's a little bit less maintenance. You don't have to worry about the property or the grounds and certain things. So that condo option could be really good. The only downside to a condo is sometimes you're just limited on bedrooms and space. And so for smaller groups, great option. You're also going to want to look at for condos, what's the price point of that rentability? Am I going to be able to offset the cost of the mortgage? And then again, you're looking at maybe a single family home. And if you get into a single family home, now you're looking at bedrooms and bathrooms. And are we doing bunk beds? Do we have multiple sleeping spaces? A lot of times with these Vrbos or Airbnbs, right, it's all about the beds. And if you have larger groups like 10 or 12 or 15, they want to be able to sleep comfortably. And so making your property appeal to a larger number of people could ultimately help with that rentability too. And there's some things that we do with our property that are unique, and we almost can split the property up a little bit. So if you have a bi-level property, you can list it a couple of different ways. So we have our property listed to where you can rent the whole property. So upstairs, downstairs, garage, you can have access to the entire thing. Or if you just want the upstairs, so maybe you're a smaller group and you're only looking for a couple of beds, right? You can just rent the upstairs and we can lock off the basement. So there's a whole nother rental that you can see on those two platforms. Or maybe you just want the upper floor and the garage, or maybe you don't want the garage. Like, you can almost make your property a la carte, but when you do that, you can have multiple listings on those platforms. So multiple listings on Vrbo and Airbnb for the same property, just depending on your needs. So if you're maybe it's just you and another couple that are looking for a 2-bedroom, well, you might not need a 4-bedroom home that sleeps 15 people, right? But those people would never see our property if we didn't list it or split it and give them the option to just rent the upstairs. So there's a lot of factors to consider when thinking about doing short-term rentals, VRBOs, or even just long-term stuff. But we think about it, right? Number one has got to be the location. Where are we going to put this property? We got to get a great deal, but we have to have it in a spot where there's going to be traffic and tourism, and you're close to probably amenities. You'll get a better bang for your buck if you are. Now, if you're further down the lake and away from Osage and the scene, it will still rent. It'll just have a different number on it. And so we think about location with anything. We're also going to just think about the ROI in the investment. Are we doing it purely from a standpoint of this is an investment property and this property is just a P&L to me? So I'm just looking at numbers. I'm not concerned with anything else. Or is this a vacation home and we want to use this property, but while we're not using it, we'll let other people come in and do short-term rentals. Whenever that time comes to rent out the property, you got to block out your time first, and then you have to incentivize people to want to rent your place. So changing the price around, maximizing that peak season, changing it in the off season, all of those things are going to try to drive traffic and show that desirability for people to want to rent your property. And then again, just obviously the property in general. So you can look at, again, condos, you can look at single family homes. Condos are going to have a lot of pros, some cons, so will single family homes. So you have to weigh those factors out, and that's going to be conducive for who you are, what you're looking for, and then obviously what are you trying to get out of it is, again, maximize your return, use the property and maximize that, just trying to offset the mortgage payment, but making sure that no matter what property we buy, that the covenants of that HOA allow for short-term or long-term rentals. And so those are just some things to think about and consider when doing, short-term rentals or investment opportunities at the lake. And again, we say it all the time. We are licensed lenders and agents. I love making these videos, but I love even more to help you with your lending or real estate needs. So that number popping up below, I am the guy that'll answer the phone calls, the text messages, and the emails. So if there's a question, a scenario, or just something I can do, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. Until then, we'll see you on Thursday where we talk part 2 on short-term rentals or investment opportunities at the lake. Bye. Some factors to think about and consider, right? We want to make sure that we're going to be able to offset the costs as we go on. Busier part of the lake, right? Back to the area. If you're able to find, if you're doing it from a vacation home, and if you're doing it from a kind of a